Okay, I want to make a video because people are still having some problems with Bootstrap conceptually, what it is and what it does and how to use it. And so I'm hoping this will clear it up for you, and I'll largely walk through a portion of our boss battle too here. So I've linked in Bootstrap CSS, and Bootstrap CSS is actually just a collection of CSS, right? And it's got some general styling. So you could think of this as normalize or reset, but with the Bootstrap styles. And so if we jump onto the Bootstrap website, the documentation, you can see like this content stuff really tells you about how all these styles that are in there. So typography, you see the styles of H1s and H6s, right? These headings, these things, even how they handle images. That's what all the non-class stuff is about. Then they have all these components. And a component is really an HTML pattern, and the one we're going to use first is navs. So let's jump over to here. Oops, let's go to, see, I have my main CSS and I have this right here. So looking at the landing stuff right here, we've gone through the setup, and I forgot the meta thing. I'll put that in afterwards. Doesn't matter. So use an appropriate organizational HTML for a header. So, right, if you remember, the organizational ones are just divs with semantic meanings. So instead of a div, I'm going to use something, right? Well, obviously in the header, I want to use a header. That's just like saying this div is a header. These are prescribed different ones. If you remember from the video, I showed like a handful of these. That's where that comes from. So you can look on the reference page for that class of where you got these. The next thing that we need to do in it is, well, it says to give our header a background, right? So let me bang that out real quick, right? So I'm going to say header background color, and I'll make it kind of a darkish gray. And we don't have any content, so we still won't see anything. Let's go to create a div as a direct child tag that you'll use as a Bootstrap container class, which will set the element max width. So this is from our grid talk. If you remember, we introduced this container class that Bootstrap has written. So the simple thing here is now you don't have to write any container class in your own CSS. In fact, you should not, because you don't want to override the things that they have written there. So I'm going to give this class div a class of container, and that's what's going to keep us to that 900 and whatever pixels on certain sizes. It's got those this is what's going to keep our max width for the breakpoints. That's the easy thing there. So now looking here, this is where we create a horizontal thing. Now I screwed up, and it should say 4.4 because that's the version we're on, and you see 4.4 down here. Also, when you click on it, because InDesign put a dash in it, it puts the dash in here. So you need to get rid of that dash as well. But that would take you to this page, this navs here. And so you have these base navs, and you see you have two basic patterns, using a UL or using a more simpler just nav with A tags. I prefer to use this, but it's obviously more succinct to use this. So why don't we just use this for now? So I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to paste that in. And this is their pattern. It's telling you that a basic pattern of a nav is to wrap a nav with a class of nav, and then just put in these A tabs. And so really, I don't want to remove any of their stuff that they've written here. But I do want to remove this because, right, I don't need a disabled link. This is just an example of a disabled link. I don't need it. I do need to have an active tab, right? So I leave it there. I could always change that if I wanted to and put it right here and make that the active tab on start. But it makes sense to make the first tab active, right? Now, I obviously will have to change my href. So if I'm going to a different page on my website, I might say, page2.html or whatever. You just change the hashtag with your hlink. And of course, you change your text, right? So I'm going to say home. I'll say link 1. Link 2, right? And these would be the things. So obviously home would just go here, and these are the ones that would go to like page1.html, page2.html, whatever the pattern is to get to something. Really doesn't matter, just put something there. And that's it. So now I actually have something I could probably see. So let's mosey over to this and refresh it, and you see here that I have my links, and they're there. So now it's up to me to do some styling of stuff. And let's see what's next in the the instructions, link your navigation, make sure your home link, add some styling to your nav, give the links padding, color for readability. Bootstrap has a blue hover style. So these are, and the active class needs a new style too, right? So I'm just telling you basically to do a little design work here. So here, maybe I want things to have a little more padding. And just so we see what's happening, let's go into main.css, and I'm going to say, go to the nav and get the A's, right? And I'm going to tell them to be, well, first of all, I'm going to make the text white, right? And so you see here we have white text. Now maybe I want the text to have a different color on hover. So on hover, I want the color to be, I don't know, orange, right? And so now when I hover, I'm on orange, but I want that active one to always have a different background color. So I'm going to give it a background color of orange, right? To kind of make it match here. So now you see when it hovers, I don't want it to be white. So I want that active.nav.a.active :hover, and you're going to have to watch this video slow down, sorry. And I'd say color white, right? So now it doesn't change color when I go over it, but these still change colors. Now if I wanted to, right, I could change the padding. So maybe I'll say padding, I don't know, 10 pixels, right? I'm just going to randomly add some more padding. And that's not working. Why didn't that work? Nav A padding. Oh, because A is a by default, right? A inline item. So I'd probably have to do this to get it to work, right? No, it's making a fool out of me, computer. Let's see what's happening here. Why are you not doing padding? Or is it that 10 is not enough? It's just that 10 is not enough. So maybe I didn't need this right here, did I? I didn't need that. I guess they already have inline block. That would make sense. Again, I don't know what Bootstrap has written off the top of my head. They probably already have them set as inline block, right? Oh no, they're set as block. Yeah, they're doing flex or something. Who knows? I'm not going to figure it out here and make this video longer. So basically what I did there is, right, I styled it. And now it just needs to sit up top, right? And so how do we get that thing to be positioned up top? Well, one of the problems is we don't have any other content, so we're not going to see that happen so much. But that's really easy. We want this header to be position fixed. When we do that, there's going to be a problem. Okay, let's go look at it so we see the problem here. So notice now it no longer has that 100% width. When you change something's position to fixed, it kind of loses its natural width flow kind of thing, document width. So we would have to say width 100%. And that'll go ahead and fix this back up. And now this will indeed be fixed to the top, and when we add more things, it'll just stay up there, and that's wonderful. That's what we need. Now, the last thing that it says is that we need to have this thing toggle. Oh, and I forgot the meta responsive. So I'm going to say meta responsive real quick. I love to just cut and paste this because I am super lazy. There we go. Let me get in here to make sure that our page is working right. There we go. And so now we need this thing to become a hamburger when we get to a certain point. And this is a little more complicated because we have to go look in a new pattern, and I have the link to it right here, and this does go to the right thing, to this toggler right here, this toggler pattern. And so you see this is a real complicated pattern here. What you need to know is that you need this. This is the actual icon, the hamburger icon. So I'm going to cut and paste that into well, let's look at this. So we see this nav. I've got all this stuff. And so let's take it, instead of jumping to that, let's pretend, so we took the less complicated nav. So we need this right here. I'm going to take this nav and I'm going to wrap it around my nav here. Boy, this is a terrible way to write this. And I should have used the other thing. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to turn this nav into a div. Really doesn't matter because it has this class of nav on it. And let's start seeing what it looks like here. So if we look here, we'll see that it got this background color. And that background color is because of this Navbar light and background light. So this background light adds the color. This Navbar light will actually set the color of your icons in the Navbar. Kind of confusing. You'd have to look through the documentation, but just trust me, that's the truth. So you see I took that away and I no longer have their thing there. You also see it added some spacing. Well, we'd have to work that out at some point. Next thing I want is that hamburger menu there, right? So I'm going to go grab in the nav bar here. Where are you? This right here. This is our hamburger icon. So I'm going to do that and put that in there right inside my nav as a direct child of the nav. Man, I love this. Okay, there you go. Close enough. Now, looking at all this stuff, we can actually delete a lot of this if we wanted to. A lot of this is for accessibility, and I haven't talked a lot about that, and I will talk about that later. I mean, really the key here is just leave it all. And that's good there. So now when we mosey over here, oh shit, sorry, can't edit that out. I don't want to take the time. Right, you'll see that when I get smaller, this actually shows up here. And so because I have Navbar light, it's showing the dark icon. So I want Navbar Dark. And so now when I shut it down, see, it'll have the light icon right here. Okay. So I've got that coming up, but I want this to disappear. And to get that to disappear, if we go back to the pattern that they have in the nav bar, you'll see that they have this collapse, Nav Bar Collapse, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and just grab this div, and I'm going to wrap my this nav in that div, and I'll make sure I close it right here. So right, I've wrapped my class div with a class of nav in this new collapse thing. And so now hopefully this should, and I closed it somehow, so let me go here. I don't know where it went to. Let's just start it back up. Okay, and so now when I take my thing, you'll notice now it kind of goes. If we actually wanted to get this going, we'd actually have to add the JavaScript, and that's why for you who are doing it coding, I don't expect you to do that because we haven't covered JavaScript yet. I just want you to know that we could do that. That's how it would work. But that's really the whole first section. If I wanted to get this this space fixed up, obviously I would come into my inspector and just start looking for where's my problems, who added this space here, and it looks like right there this nav bar, right? So for this I maybe would say padding 0 on my nav bar if I wanted to fix that. The problem becomes then that this doesn't have space there. So I'd probably put margin on that. So let me just fix that because if you want to find it. So I'd say, right, I'm going to overwrite that navbar pattern that they have and say padding 0. And then I'm going to get, right, this thing is a navbar toggler. So I'm going to say .navbar toggler margin, I don't know, 10 pix 0, just to give it some space. And so now hopefully, see, it looks pretty good to me. That will do exactly what I expect. I was super fast, but let's talk about the other sections. The important thing about the other sections is you're always doing this pattern of some wrapping tag and a class of container. So the next 4 sections will each have that. So you're going to have a hero. So I'd probably use the section tag, and I'd give it a class or an ID. Doesn't really matter which you use, of hero. And I'll give it a div class equals container. Right? And then I'll write all the CSS then that I want for inside that hero section in here. I would do it again for the next section, right? The next section is that 3 list thing. And so I'd call this maybe like features, the features list. And I'd leave these as, and of course it only works if you spell things right. Right, this container. Now this, on this features one, this is where we're using that row and the Bootstrap grid pattern that I showed you. So you'd make a right, you're gonna definitely do a div class equals row, right? And then do your columns in here. Inside here. Lastly, right, we have, how many sections do we have? Maybe 5 sections. Oh, maybe there's a section for the owl pictures. So again, maybe use a section, make it a container. I mean, technically you could even just put it right in here and give it a new container and then write it in here. Really, it doesn't matter which way you do it, and I don't know if I say something in the instructions about how to do it because I'm not flipping back over to those. And then lastly, right, you have to have some kind of a footer. So you have a footer, and this one also will have, right, a container, right? And so you write all the rest of your markup inside all of these, right? So this one will have something like probably an H1 with something on it. You know, you'll have a P tag, you'll have a button, you'll set the background and everything. That's pretty much the structure of what you should do. The navigation is definitely the hardest thing. After this, the next hardest thing is probably the features thing, unless you understood Bootstrap Grid pretty well. And that's it. I hope this helps you in some way. You know, obviously I went fast, so you're gonna have to slow this down. And reach out to me with any issues you may have.